Please help me in giving a warm welcome to our guest of honor tonight who will address us, Harav Chaim Peikarski.
I was in Frankfurt Airport. Frankfurt. The last place that I would expect to see a group of Bachrim. But there they were, on a stopover, I believe, to Russia and Ukraine. A group of well-behaved Olatayra Bachrim. That's an oxymoron. But there was one common denominator, Reb Zusha Wilhelm. I spotted him right there, and of course he gave me a warm welcome because who would expect to meet each other in Frankfurt Airport? But what I did notice, and now it came to mind, I was thinking, both in the airport and on the flight together that we shared back to New York, a group of Olatayra Bachrim, Pashit, simply as an example, Neiris Lahoyer, of what a Chassidish Bacha should look like. And that was Reb Zusha Wilhelm. If I can encompass, just to translate into a few words, what Reb Zusha was, a real mechanech. And for that I would say, I'm honored to be part of the same event that honors Reb Zusha. And so we're here to celebrate. I live in Borough Park. I grew up in Crown Heights. I live in Borough Park. And as a bacher, I didn't really. The Fabrengens went over my head. The Shiurim went over my head. But I got a version 2. I got to sit by Rabbi Yoel's Shiurim for many years in Borough Park. And he would say, he would start off with a question, Marash, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? For emphasis, what's the big deal? You have an organization. If you go in Borough Park in the shuls, there's a stack of stuff to read. I mean, they really want to conquer Asr L'daber B'shas HaTfilah. They give you reading material, light stuff, heavy stuff, everything in between. And between is buried another booklet, Likrat Shabbost. So we're here to celebrate another organization that gives out vertlach and booklets every week. Whoopie-doo, yippee-yay. Marash. What are we making a whole big deal about it? Nope. Maybe it is a big deal. Maybe. Likrat Shabbost and Or HaChasidus represents the next frontier, the last frontier of Afatzas Mayanas. Why? First of all, on a basic level, on a very basic level, it is impossible to understand certain things if you don't incorporate Chassidus. Rabim Haim, v'yev shalafartam. But I never saw a microphone that I never liked, except one that doesn't work. And I will take the opportunity to enumerate a few, so you should get a little bit of a feeling and an understanding of what it means that without the Or HaChasidus, you just simply you're not able to comprehend and understand basic things. Just in the last couple of weeks, Yitzchak calls Yaakov and he says, I would like Esav, and I would like to give you the brachas. And of course we know that Yaakov had to fool, so-called, he had to fool and convince Yitzchak that he was Esav, and because of that he got the brachas. Was Yitzchak really a blind old fool? Did Yitzchak really not know who Esav was? If you learn the psukim as a Pashata Yid, Esav fooled Yitzchak. And Baruch Hashem, Rivka was able to do a workaround, and Yaakov was able to grab the brachas. But if you learn Chassidus, you just shine the light of Chassidus on this incomprehensible concept that Yitzchak, one of the avos, was fooled, and you say no. Yitzchak was not fooled. We understand, and the Alter Rebbe explains it at length, and the Rebbe talks about it at length, and Likrat Shabbost talks about it b'kitzer. No, Yitzchak was not fooled by Esav. We know that Yitzchak saw the potential of Esav, and that is why it says in the Zohar that Yitzchak wanted to give Esav the brachas. And the finale, the end of Esav's life, his head ends up being buried together with Yitzchak. The Zohar explains that the head of Esav, which came from such high worlds, that was buried next to the chest of Yitzchak. When you understand this, now things start to make sense. Yitzchak was no old blind fool. Yitzchak saw what other people didn't see. Just one little example of being able to understand very basic Chumash. Without Chassidus, it doesn't make sense. You move on to the next parsha. Lavan tries to trick Yaakov to marrying Leah. And the Medrash says, there's a conversation between Yaakov and Leah. He says, why did you fool me? And Leah says, you fooled your father. What is this little gamesmanship? You fooled him, I fooled you, it's okay. And if you learn Chassidus, you understand it all makes sense. It also explains why was Leah so concerned that they said that the older one will marry the older one, the younger one will marry the older one. Who cares? People on the street talk things all the time. So what? Who cares? Because there was truth to it. Leah was actually designated to marry Esav because of the greatness of the high oilemus, the high spheres where Esav came from. Leah was designated for Esav. It was a true, well-founded fear. And that's what Yitzchak saw in Esav. And that's what Leah saw. Those were not just rumors. And guess what? When that conversation happens between Yaakov and Leah, Leah says, you said, Ani Esav b'cheirecha. Didn't you say that? You weren't lying. You weren't tricking. You bought the b'cheirah from Esav, and you are now standing in the place of Esav. Therefore, it is only rightfully so that I marry you as the replacement of Esav. You cannot comprehend these psukim unless you learn Chassidus. You shine the light of Chassidus, basic Chumash starts to make sense. We continue to this last week's parsha. The parsha tells us all about the wealth of Yaakov. Very nice. Tzayin Rabbis, he amassed wealth. And how did he amass wealth? Not through crypto, but he accomplished this through herds of sheep, Tzayin Rabbis. And through the Tzayin Rabbis, he was able to invest and to buy the shoyer, the chamor, the gmalim, the avodim, everything. But it all started from the Tzayin Rabbis. Why does the Torah have to tell us all about that he achieved wealth through Tzayin Rabbis? Very nice. He became rich. He became wealthy. Tzayin Rabbis. Shine the light of Chassidus on a simple question like this, and you understand. Because Yaakov Avinu is represented by the midah of Tzayin. He saw himself through Tzayin because Tzayin represented the tchuna, the avodah of Yaakov, which was the avodah of Bittul. We need to know that. You know why? Because we, Siman Avos, Maisa Avos, Simil Abonim, this answers another question. In Parashas Vayishlach it says, Vayihi li shoyer v'chamoir. Yaakov is sending Esav a message. I amassed wealth. I have oxen and donkeys. Didn't we just learn that he amassed the wealth through sheep? Why is he switching to shoyer v'chamoyer? Again, it's to tell us that even if you are in the b'china of tzayin, you are humble, you have the ultimate levels of bittul. When it comes to standing up to Esav, you switch. The tchuna of shoyer and chamer, strength and might, is what you're going to stand up to Esav. You cannot begin to comprehend these concepts without shining the light of Chassidus. Im Lavan Garti, says the Rebbe, the two pshatim are one and the same. Taryag mitzvah shemarti, but I was also a ger. I was not a citizen. I didn't become a citizen of Aram. I was there as a foreigner. I was there as an immigrant, but I did not settle there. Says the Rebbe, and this week's Light Points, by the way, Avrami, Light Points is the stable. It's the center of my Shabbos meal. You should just know that. That red Light Points. Im Lavan Garti, because I was a ger, I was a foreigner in Lavan's territory, Taryag mitzvah shemarti, I was able to hold on to every single mitzvah. The Rebbe takes these two and he fuses them, binds them together. And you can go on and on and on. You cannot understand basic Mishnah, you cannot understand basic Gemara without Or HaChasidus. Another example, the Mishnah says, Ben Meya kilu avaru batal min ha'olam. That's where the famous cliche says he's overbatal, he's 100 years old. The Pashta Pshat is, he's disconnected from the world, so you should detest the world, because the world shouldn't mean anything to you at that point. Says the Rebbe, no, take it a deeper level. Avaru meisa batal min ha'olam is the highest level. He has overtaken the world. He has transformed his relationship to the world, that the world, he has elevated the world. He has achieved every single milestone that a person is supposed to achieve in his life. That's the Avaru meisa batal min ha'olam. If anybody has ever learned the story in Megillah of Shachat Rabba l'Rab Zera, the Pashta Pshat, Rabba gets up and he slaughters and he kills Rab Zera. What kind of story is that? And we all know the phenomenal, the beautiful explanation that the Rebbe gives to that about the relationship of Rabba and Rab Zera and how they were miyached yichudim and they will reach the highest levels on Purim v'ad that a person cannot normally reach. And it goes on and on and on. And of course, in this week's parasha, we have details about the lineage of Esav, and about the Alufim, and about their families, and about their kingdoms. Why is that relevant to us? Every single detail. Learn Chassidus and you'll understand. The fight between Yaakov and Esav is our fight. Lavan's fight took 22 years. Yaakov had to be with Lavan for 22 years. He dealt with the trickster of the century of the world. But he was able to refine, to be mevara, to elevate that klippa. His job was done. He could leave. And now, why? Why is Yaakov looking to meet Esav? He knows that Esav wants to kill him. How does he know? Esav said so. Esav said, my father will pass, and I will kill Yaakov. What is he looking for trouble? Why does Yaakov look to meet Esav? You stay in your corner, let him stay in his corner. Why awaken the bear? Why go send him messages? And we know that when he sent him messages, he wasn't sure what's going to happen. Yet Yaakov dares to send Esav messages. It doesn't make sense unless you take the Or HaChasidus and you explain it. Yaakov and Esav are the fight of Golus. The fight of Golus. Yaakov thought that if he'll meet Esav, he'll be able to finish the birur, the refinement. It will be over. Chassidus explains that that wasn't the case. Arba me'os ishemoi. And he wasn't able to do that because Yaakov, the clash of Yaakov and Esav is ongoing through this Golus. And therefore, we need to know every single detail. We need to know the details of Vayimach Vayomois, of all the different kingdoms that came down, where Esav originated from, where he came down to here, and what is our purpose in the refinement of this world, which is the fight against Esav, the classic clash of Yaakov and Esav, which is being won day in, day out, through the refinement and elevation and being mevarer this world through Or HaChasidus. That's why all the detail. You cannot even begin to understand it without Or HaChasidus. We know that the original Afatzas Mayonis took place with the Baal Shem Tov. Who were the Baal Shem Tov's Talmidim, disciples, the Maggids, the Alter Rebbes? You're talking about the Chavraya Kadisha. You're talking about the highest of the highest. You're talking about people who themselves were Rebbes. The Talmidei of Baal Shem Tov were accomplished people before they even became Talmidim. The Talmidim of the Maggid, after the Maggid passed, Yahrzeit this week, Yud-Tes Kislev, after the Maggid passed, what happened? Every single one of his Talmidim became a Rebbe somewhere else. In order to get into the Cheder, as it was called, of the Alter Rebbe, you had to pass the test that today's Yeshivas HaMetziyonim wouldn't even be able to pass. To enter the Cheder of the Alter Rebbe, to learn Chassidus from the Alter Rebbe. We're talking about accomplished people. That's where the original Afatzas Mayonis went. Those people who were accomplished were missing the very basics of Or HaChasidus. And that's why they lined up to drink from the wells of Chassidus, from the greatest of their generation. That Afatzas Mayonis continues till today. And where does it start with? It starts with right here in the Frum world. For the last 20 years, Or HaChasidus, on a shoestring budget, I could see that for myself, was started by a very humble person who's been distributing booklets every Shabbos. Insights to the Parsha that can take a Shabbos, that in my neighborhoods you can call it a Cholent Shabbos. Yes, it could be a Shabbos where you daven, you go to shul, but the Iker is the Cholent and the Kugel and all the niceties. And you transform that Shabbos into a Shabbos of meaning, a Shabbos of connection to the Eibishter, with a little bit of Or HaChasidus that turns it upside down, that it's a Shabbos that happens to have Cholent in it. But it's not about the Cholent. It's about the connection of a person, of a Yid with the Eibishter. Or HaChasidus is geared for the frummest of the frummest. You cannot be Mekayim basic mitzvahs tmidios without learning Chassidus. You cannot be Mekayim the mitzvah of Ava and Yira and Achdus Hashem. You cannot understand the basic concepts of Avos Yisrael. You cannot understand the basics of Hashgacha Pratis unless you incorporate Teres Baal Shem Tov and Teres Chassidus Chabad into your daily life. You can live a whole life and you could have everything you think you had when it comes to Torah and mitzvahs, and you miss the boat on the mitzvahs haikorim and the mitzvahs tmidios. You miss them. We know that the mitzvah of Ava v'Yira is the anofim. They are the wings that feed and fuel every single other mitzvah. And a person can never go a whole lifetime without even knowing it. Ask the average person what means Hashgacha Pratis. Ask him why you have to love your fellow Jew. Why? Because you have to learn Perek Lamed Beis to even just to begin to understand what it means, Avos Yisrael. Moira Rabbi Sai. Likrat Shabbost, Or HaChasidus runs around and gives trucks and puts out thousands and thousands of booklets so that every week it should drip, 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 a little bit of Chassidus that can possibly transform a person's life because they'll get hooked onto it at some point. The consistency of it will just make you addicted to something a lot more meaningful. And once you're addicted, it's transformative. It changes a person's life. It changes their family's life. And we could see in the last years how the Or HaChasidus has literally permeated the Olam HaTorah, completely transformed it. There's limit HaTorah, but now there's also recognition of the Noisen HaTorah. There is a Noisen HaTorah because Or HaChasidus has been permeated into every single corner of the community, and the work has only begun. Moira Rabbi Sai, the drip of every single week turns into, as they say in political lexicon today, drill, drill, drill. So from drip, 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 goes to drill, drill, drill. And Rabbi Vam, I commend you. It's easy for us to say, go for it, but you were there in the hard times. You were there when it was hard to drill. You were there when it was hard to drip. So when I say to the Olam over here, open your pockets and let it drip a little more. Shkoyach.